We've got some big news in this video. So a Democrat judge was caught housing an illegal Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang member in his own house. Also, the Supreme Court issues a chilling ruling that should be worrisome to everybody as these federal judges keep acting out of control. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. But before we get into the Tren de Aragua judge, which is crazy, let's hear about the ruling the Supreme Court made on Donald Trump being able to use the Alien Enemies Act.
Tonight, tensions escalating between President Trump and the Supreme Court. The administration asking the court to end its pause on their planned deportation of at least 28 Venezuelan detainees at a Texas ICE facility. The court temporarily stopped the White House's plans this weekend to deport the men under the Alien Enemies Act. The administration says the men are gang members, but lawyers representing the detainees say they're being denied their due process. President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, has previously said that doesn't apply.
The length of due process is not the same under the Alien Enemies Act. That's why the Alien Enemies Act was created.
Well, 7 justices agreed on the order. Justice Samuel Alito, writing his dissent, joined by Justice Clarence Thomas, that the court issued unprecedented and legally questionable relief without giving the lower courts a chance to rule.
So what's super weird about this ruling is the fact that in the same ruling that they told Trump he had to wait for the deportation flights, they also said it was questionable if the courts can rule on the president's Article 2 powers anyway. And the reason why this is so worrisome, along with the 7-2 ruling, is because the dissenting judge who said this was questionable to begin with is basically alluding to the fact that the court system is overstepping their boundaries into legitimate presidential powers. The Democrats want to say it's a constitutional crisis because Donald Trump is, disobeying the courts or whatever they want to say. But they conveniently forget that there are 3 co-equal branches of government. They seem to think that the end-all, be-all, superior branch is the courts. The reason the courts don't have an enforcement mechanism is so that they can't make unconstitutional rulings and then jail people for not following them. The executive would have the power to ignore the courts, and then the Congress would have the power to not impeach the president for ignoring the courts. So they ruled that initial Democrat Obama judge, Judge Boasberg, his initial block, he never had the power to even do it. So it's a positive sign there, but it's also a chilling sign that while they'll admit that the Alien Enemies Act is approved, the president can use it. It's within his power. They're now putting a pause on flights. For what? Let's hear Stephen Miller give his opinion on this.
You have, in this case, illegal aliens from Venezuela sent here by Maduro who are members of a foreign terrorist organization, Tren de Aragua, an organization that the intelligence community has found is operating at the direction of a hostile, adversarial foreign regime carrying out criminal enterprises to destabilize the political system in the United States. Those are the facts when it comes to TDA. So they're all illegal, they're all gang members, they're all foreign terrorists. And now we are being told that they cannot be expelled from our country without an extraordinary amount of individualized adjudication at the district court, circuit court, Supreme Court, up and down, up and down, up and down. No American citizen receives this level of so-called due process. This isn't due process. This is called infinity process to keep you here forever. Yeah. That's what this is.
Again, Stephen Miller is becoming one of my favorite members to hear talk, but his point was absolutely valid. What kind of stringent requirements do you think that we're going to be affording to every single person here illegally? And individually at that, not even as a collective. Most immigration cases are tried sometimes as a collective. And people keep asking why it's these Venezuelans that are going to El Salvador under this act that are getting blocked. Well, because when Joe Biden instituted his policy to give temporary protective status to hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans, the government of Venezuela emptied their prisons, emptied their mental institutions, and sent those people into the United States because we were just willing to welcome them with open arms. And so how deportations are supposed to go, the country in which these people came from should accept them back. But Venezuela isn't doing that. Why do you think that is? If they were sending their best and their brightest and their most upstanding to the United States, Why aren't they willing to take them back? So Donald Trump is forced to deport them to, hey, guess who will take all of these criminals? El Salvador. And the Supreme Court is trying to stop this process. That's the chilling part about all of this. If the highest court in the land is not going to add some grease to keep these wheels turning, then Trump's plan of being able to deport any significant number of illegal immigrants is certainly in jeopardy. But anyway, let me show you guys this insane story about the New Mexico judge who was caught with an illegal Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang member, part of the same gang that is being sent to the maximum security El Salvador prison in his own home, forcing him to retire. Watch this.
A New Mexico judge resigned from the bench after an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member was arrested at his home. Doña Ana County Magistrate Judge Joel Cano wrote his resignation on March 3rd, but the Supreme Court and 3rd Judicial District Court did not receive it till March 31st. A spokesman for the Administrative Office of the Courts, AOC, told Fox News Digital. Homeland Security Investigations Las Cruces began looking into Venezuelan native Christian Ortega Lopez in January. Lopez is an illegal alien from Venezuela and a suspected member of a criminal gang who was residing with other illegal aliens and in possession of firearms, court documents suggest. 2 search warrants were executed at a home investigators on February 28th, identified as owned by Cano's wife, Nancy Cano. Ortega Lopez and his roommates were taken into custody, and agents seized 4 firearms from April Cano's residence.
Wow, so I guess we're not MAGA conspiracy theorists. These Democrats really do love these illegal immigrants, especially the gang member ones. It's so despicable that there are people throughout all levels of government that are actively facilitating and supporting an illegal immigration crisis still. And what's so revealing about all this is if there are judges that are housing gang members, it shows just how biased these judges can be. The activist Obama judge who initially blocked Trump from using the Alien Enemies Act. The guy that looks like Roger the Alien, Judge Boasberg. His daughter worked at a nonprofit that gave free legal advice to gang member illegal immigrants. So it's like these people who are supposed to be impartial, and when we complain that they're judge shopping, the left says, oh, no way, these are unbiased judges. Your guy, Donald Trump, just can't stop breaking the law. Okay, well, listen to this Democrat congresswoman from California say the quiet part out loud. Every day, they're behind the scenes judge shopping, trying to weaponize lawfare to block Trump's agenda. Take a look.
Every single week, we have a litigation working group where a large group of us, and I'm talking there's maybe 75 members of the House, sit down every single week with the AGs to talk about legal strategy. This is all going on every single week behind the scenes. It is nonstop talk, nonstop introduction of bills and legislation, nonstop being on social media as much as we can without being throttled and without the crazy analytics, and doing all these things.
So yeah, these people are openly admitting to using the exact same weaponizing the justice system tactics that they were using when Donald Trump was running for president. They are so unscrupulous that they can just admit it at this point. They have no other strategy except for to weaponize lawfare. And what bothers me is you have these judges who are blatantly, knowingly being unconstitutional in their rulings with these blocks, with these injunctions, but they don't care. They're issuing them anyway because there's no recourse. What happens to these judges? And so they're hoping that they can issue unconstitutional rulings that will block the Trump administration until they're inevitably overturned by the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court overturns one thing, they're just going to issue another unconstitutional ruling. Like, look at some of these recent federal judge rulings and tell me how ridiculous this is and how blatantly they're stepping on legitimate presidential powers here. U.S. District Judge Anna C. Reyes orders the Pentagon to allow transgender troops, calls Trump ban unabashedly demeaning. So the courts now think they have the right to decide military standards. All standards and requirements are inherently discriminatory. You're trying to weed out people who don't meet them. That would be like saying the military has to admit obese people because otherwise it's discriminatory towards people who are overweight. That would be like them saying that the military can't institute physical strength standards because it's discriminatory towards the people who don't meet them. Transgender people aren't a type of people, and the military can ban them not as a civil right violation, but as a health and physical standard requirement. I bet the military isn't letting severe schizophrenics in the military, so why would they allow a person that legitimately thinks they're the opposite gender? They don't allow people with asthma in the military. I'm sure they don't allow people with severe back and knee problems to join the military. So why would they allow a person that has pumped their body with the opposite sex hormones, thus ruining their muscle mass and their bone density and their joint strength, as well as undergone severe surgeries that make them a medical liability? Just imagine you're a transgender troop and you're stuck, gone from supply lines in some battlefield somewhere, and the government's got to worry about getting you your cocktail of pills so your body doesn't fall apart from what you've done to it. Like, this is so blatantly something that is just the military's prerogative. It is insane that the judge made this ruling. Here's another one. Judge Mary Rosado issues order temporarily blocking the New York mayor from allowing ICE into Rikers. So a judge is blocking that the mayor of a city cannot allow federal agents into the city's prison. How does that make sense? Isn't that like overstepping on the mayor's power and the federal government's power? So they're basically saying you're not allowed to do deportations in our prison. Who does that help? How is that for any American? Let alone it being totally unconstitutional for a judge to dictate how the federal government can work with cities to do deportations. Oh, we're not done either. Here's another one. A federal judge in Georgia has just ordered Trump to reinstate the legal statuses of 133 international students by 5 p.m. That's the problem with this whole thing too, is they're consistently talking to the executive branch of the government like they are inferior to the courts. They are acting and operating as if they are the superior branch of government and the other two are inferior. And the Democrats are openly cheering and supporting this. What I think they're trying to do is go Donald Trump into defying a court order openly and unabashedly, because they're going to issue a ruling so unconstitutional that he has to not follow it. And then the Democrats are going to use that moment to point and say, constitutional crisis, he's a dictator, we told you he's Hitler, and will not hold the courts at all liable for overstepping in their powers. Look at this final one. A federal judge on Thursday said she would halt the Trump administration from ending a program that allowed hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to temporarily live in the United States. I mean, come on, the judges think that they have the power to dictate immigration policy. These people have temporary protected status issued by Joe Biden so he could provide as many ways as possible for people to come into the United States, get social security numbers, stay here forever, have American children. It seems like the whole Biden administration was predicated on delivering the American dream to trans people and illegal immigrants from the third world. That's it. The rest of us, out of luck. But here's Border Czar Tom Homan talking about just how ridiculous it is that a judge is blocking Trump from ending temporary protected status.
It's another activist judge making a stupid ruling. It just doesn't make sense. You know, I've been around since 1984, Lawrence, and a TPS, temporary protected status, is never temporary. And President Trump is going to do his job by the rule of law. The law says temporary status. Once the conditions in that country they're from, once the conditions change, then people should be removed from the United States. It's only a temporary status. For instance, if there's a hurricane and it devastates a part of a country, we'll give them TPS until that country gets back on their feet. But TPS isn't meant to be decades long. So President Trump, who's promised American people, we're going to enforce the laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president. We're going to use the laws of this country to secure the border and enforce our immigration law. That's exactly what we're doing. TPS needs to be temporary in nature. We need to follow the rule of law and not some advice from an activist judge who makes a foolish ruling, not based on law, but based on opinion. If you look at that decision, it's based on opinion, not the rule of law, and that's what we need to get back to. So look, we'll litigate it, and we'll appeal it, and we'll win.
I always use this as the logic test to see exactly where people stand with illegal immigration. I say, okay, let's say Abrego Garcia legitimately had an asylum claim to come to the United States because he was in fear for his life because violence is so widespread in El Salvador. Let's pretend that's the situation. Would you be okay with every single non-gang member citizen of El Salvador coming to the United States then? And they'll either say no, which proves the hole in their logic, or they'll say yes. Okay, if they say yes. So once the country is rid of every law-abiding citizen and it's just gang members, and the government rounds up everybody, throws them in a supermax security prison, and the country is safe, do all those people now need to return home? And this is where you get to the crux of how they truly feel. Either they say, yeah, they can go home then if everything's safe, or, and what they say in almost every case is, no, they're here. If they have a job, if they haven't committed a crime here, then they should be able to stay. And they reveal the truth. That was their plan the entire time, and that's how they still currently feel about this. To end this video, I want to throw up a post that I saw on X that really describes this whole situation perfectly. It reads, "The judiciary telling us we need to have 3 court dates each for 30 million illegal aliens is grounds for a revolution." And in my heart of hearts, I truly hope it never gets to that point. But I think people are mistaken if they think that the American people is just going to willingly be forced to accept the fact that they no longer have a country. They no longer have sovereignty. They are ruled by activist judges, and even when they elect a president who says, I'm going to do your bidding and deport these people, he is not allowed to. I think that is going to make the people rise up for sure. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.